The moment you open your mouth to justify your worth, you have already lost. Look across the negotiation table. You will see two types of players. The majority are playing a desperate game of checkers. They over-explain. They lean in. They smile too much. They are terrified of losing the deal, terrified of offending the client, terrified of the word no. This is the wage slave reaction. They bleed leverage from 1,000 tiny cuts of accommodation. Why do they instinctively default to this pathetic display of subservience? Because from the age of 5, the masses are systematically conditioned to seek gold stars. They are bred within the public education machinery to raise their hands, wait patiently to be chosen, and desperately crave the validation of an assigned authority figure. They carry this deeply ingrained peasant psychology directly into the corporate boardroom. They lay out their credentials, their degrees, and their references like desperate beggars displaying their sores in the street, silently praying that the aristocrat across the table will drop a copper coin into their tin cup. They mistakenly believe that value is a tangible object you must logically prove. But the undeniable truth of the elite echelon is that supreme value is never proven. It is assumed. The very act of attempting to convince another human being that you are worthy of their capital is a subconscious admission of your own inferiority. If you were truly invaluable, you would not need to state it. The gravitational pull of your mere presence would demand it. Observe the pathetic physical anatomy of a desperate negotiator. You can practically smell the acidic cortisol leaking from their pores. They fill every passing second of silence with nervous chatter, effectively bidding against themselves before the opponent has even spoken a single syllable. They nod excessively like a cheap toy on a dashboard. They immediately agree to a slightly compressed timeline just to appear cooperative. They casually throw in a complimentary round of revisions out of sheer panic. They laugh loudly at corporate jokes that possess absolutely zero comedic value. Each of these micro-concessions feels entirely insignificant to their untrained minds, but to a seasoned predator, it is fresh blood pooling in the water. These are the 1,000 tiny cuts of accommodation. They signal a profound and fatal lack of optionality. And in the dark, luxurious theater of corporate warfare, if you possess no other options, you possess no power. You are entirely at the mercy of the buyer, and the buyer has absolutely no mercy. The system was meticulously designed to devour the compliant without a second thought. Now look at the apex predator, the sovereign player. They lean back in their chair, utterly claiming the physical space around them. Their face is an impenetrable mask of polite indifference. They do not convince. They do not beg. They sit at the high-stakes poker table of corporate warfare with a hand they are perfectly willing to fold. This is the 1% walk-away protocol, the ultimate leverage multiplier. True power does not come from your polished resume, your superficial charm, or your exhausted work ethic. True power comes from the absolute, unshakable willingness to destroy a lucrative deal, burn the bridge to ashes, and walk out the door without a single glance backward. This protocol is not merely a situational negotiation tactic to be deployed when convenient. It is a fundamental, permanent rewiring of your psychological baseline. You must aggressively cultivate a genuine, freezing apathy regarding the outcome of any given meeting. The sovereign individual enters the room requiring absolutely nothing from the people inside it. They are not there to secure a contract or plead for an opportunity. They are there to ruthlessly evaluate whether the entity sitting across from them is worthy of their finite time and intellectual capital. The power dynamic flips instantly upon entry. The predator operates from an impregnable fortress of abundance. If this particular deal collapses, there are 10 more waiting in the shadows. If the client balks at the premium price tag, the meeting is gracefully and swiftly terminated. There is no desperate counteroffer. There is no pathetic meeting in the middle. The middle is exactly where mediocrity goes to die a slow, unremembered death. The illusion of the middle class is that wealth is earned through compliance. You are taught to say yes. Yes to more work. Yes to lower fees. Yes to disrespect. You are taught that if you are just agreeable enough, if you just keep your head down and grind for 40 years, the system will eventually reward your blind loyalty. This is the most brilliantly successful propaganda campaign in modern human history. It is a fairy tale whispered to keep the gears of the machine lubricated with cheap labor. The elite know this is Ali. The elite know respect and capital are only given to those who extract it by force. Examine the blood-stained history of accumulated wealth. The great industrial dynasties of the 19th and 20th centuries were not built by agreeable, timid men who asked politely for a fair share of the market. They were constructed by ruthless visionaries who monopolized essential resources, cornered global markets, and dictated absolute terms to a desperate, dependent public. Meritocracy is nothing more than a psychological pacifier designed to keep the working class obedient and perpetually exhausted. It feeds them the enduring delusion that if they simply put in 80 hours a week and polish their corporate pedigree, they will one day be invited into the ruling class. But a corporate resume is nothing more than a pedigree for an obedient show dog. It dictates exactly how high you can jump for your master's amusement. It does not, and never will, grant you ownership of the master's estate. The most violent weapon in a negotiation is not a louder voice. It is silence. It is the void. It is the chilling realization in your opponent's mind that you simply do not care if they sign. When you present your non-negotiable terms, you do not justify them. You do not soften the blow with pleasantries. You state your exorbitant price, and then you shut your mouth entirely. You let the dead silence stretch across the mahogany table. You let it become painfully uncomfortable. You let it become agonizing. The average person possesses exactly zero tolerance for dead air. Their internal social programming demands that they fill the void, smooth over the rising tension, and make everyone in the room feel comfortable and safe. When confronted with the heavy, unblinking silence of a sovereign player, the opponent will inevitably crack under the sheer psychological pressure. They will begin to nervously negotiate against their own best interests. They will voluntarily reveal their true, hidden budget. They will expose their underlying corporate anxieties and impending operational deadlines. Silence is the dark mirror that reflects their own desperation right back into their eyes. By doing absolutely nothing, you force them to expend all their mental energy attempting to anchor themselves in the conversation. You become the immovable object, the monolith, and they shatter themselves repeatedly against your sheer indifference. Throughout the brutal annals of human history, from the ruthless spice merchants of antiquity to the merciless boardroom titans of the 21st century, the fundamental architecture of human leverage has remained entirely unchanged. The one who needs the transaction the least completely controls the terms of the engagement. Consider the historical concept of the sovereign monarch. A king does not debate his royal decrees with the peasantry. A king does not offer seasonal discounts to his subjects in a pathetic bid to win their favor. He dictates his absolute reality, and the surrounding world is forced to bend and break to accommodate his will. To master the walk-away protocol is to crown yourself in the modern realm of commerce. It requires the emotional discipline of a clinical sociopath and the calculated 10 steps ahead restraint of a grandmaster. You must surgically amputate your emotional attachment to the money. The precise moment you start spending the commission in your head before the ink on the contract is dry, you have placed a heavy iron collar around your own neck. You have willingly handed them the leash. The true elite view capital not as a desperate lifeline to cling to for survival, but as heavy ammunition. And one does not beg their enemies for ammunition. One seizes the armory by force. Let us dissect the exact physical mechanics of the walk away. It is never an emotional outburst. It is not a dramatic, angry exit fueled by a bruised ego or slighted pride. It is a cold, calculated, and terrifyingly calm execution. When the client demands an unreasonable concession or disrespects your stated boundaries, you do not argue. You simply close your leather portfolio. You maintain unbroken, unblinking eye contact. You stand up slowly, smoothly, radiating an aura of absolute finality. You politely thank them for their time, entirely devoid of sarcasm, and you turn your back. The physical turning of the back is the ultimate, undeniable display of dominance. It signals on a primal level that they no longer exist in your sphere of relevance. The sheer psychological shock this inflicts upon a buyer accustomed to groveling, desperate vendors is catastrophic. You sever their power cord in a single, elegant motion. When you master the walk-away protocol, you stop competing. You become the prize. You weaponize their desperation against them. Human psychology is deeply flawed, entirely predictable, and wonderfully perverse. People do not desire what is freely and easily available to them. They despise the accessible. They desire what is strictly scarce. They desire what is incredibly difficult to obtain. They desire exactly the thing that actively threatens to reject them. When you demonstrate a genuine, undeniable willingness to walk away from their money, you instantly trigger a primal, biological fear of loss deep within the buyer's brain. Suddenly, you are no longer just another interchangeable vendor peddling a commoditized service. You are a rare, elusive commodity slipping rapidly through their greedy fingers. The power dynamic inverts completely and violently. The very same corporate client who was arrogantly haggling over pennies just 3 minutes prior will suddenly find vast, hidden reserves of capital to secure your favor. They will begin to aggressively chase you. They will attempt to prove to you that their company is a worthy partner for your elite expertise. By being perfectly willing to lose the deal, you absolutely guarantee your victory over it. This is the ultimate, final evolution of the professional predator. You completely transcend the petty, exhausting squabbles of the lower tiers. You exist in an exclusive atmosphere of pure, unadulterated leverage. You offer zero discounts, you make absolutely no apologies for your demands, and you suffer zero disrespect from anyone, regardless of their title or net worth. You simply state your unbending reality, and if the world refuses to meet your exact price, you turn your back and walk out into the infinite void, knowing with absolute, terrifying certainty that they will eventually call you back. And when they inevitably do make that call, the price goes up 20%.